Good morning, everyone. So obviously, if you don't know what 12D synergy is yet, you've probably been asleep for some of these sessions. So it's been well and truly talked about. So hopefully my talk's a different take on what Richard's spoken about and Sam. So I will give you a bit of a background on what we're doing and where we're going. So who am I? I'm a surveyor by trade. I look after a number of major clients in the Wellington region, mainly a land development focus. I've been using 12D actively for the last 15 years on the survey and design side, so I know how that runs, and I know enough to be dangerous to keep the designers honest. I've got a keen interest in obviously keeping up to date with technology as well. So just an overview of what I'll be talking about, brief introduction, considerations of 12D synergy and we'll be pushed forward with that, a bit about our development phase, how we're using 12D synergy, the rollout in New Zealand, and a conclusion. Just a bit about Cardno, that's who we are. That's Cardno around the world. Obviously, companies are getting bigger, Cardno's no exception, so yeah, that'll be expected to grow. So in New Zealand, these are the disciplines that we stick to our knitting in. Obviously, when thinking about all these disciplines and synergy, we had to consider each and every one of those in terms of how they would integrate with synergy and the workflow within it. So, seeking improvements. The existing system was in need of improvement. Obviously, emails, management of data was always something that you struggle to get your head around. And being a project manager, you're always the one looking for information. You don't necessarily be the one that files that information, so you're on the hunt. So, as a frustrated manager, I could see we had to make some improvements. The last conference in 2012, there was a couple of talks on synergy. So through that, I could see the potential and what it could do. So we obviously, following that conference, set about looking at, is this the right way to go? What's the other software out there? What can it do? And how can it integrate into our business? There was obviously a question about that. Obviously, each of those other packages have different strengths, but they didn't really do everything that we wanted it to do. At that time, we weren't even considering integrating synergy with 12D model. We were purely looking at it from a management and data point of view. So our quality management systems and our data management is really the key driver for why we were looking at synergy. So document management system, obviously a lot of those items there are key things that we wanted to ensure we could do, and as with any system, everyone else will have similar drivers. And the bottom one's probably the important one from a company perspective as well. We need to ensure that it could be integrated into all the other disciplines within the business. So in February 2013, we installed 12D Synergy and testing commenced. That results in a number of bigger questions really about where you go with synergy and the structure and setup you need to invest in to get the most out of the software. So the directory structure was thought about, the file naming, the attributes and the permissions. If you don't think about that information up front, then you might as well stick to your Explorer type setting, because the standards and the attributes are the power. New Zealand IT setup. Unlike Sam, I'm not the IT man, so I've got to talk to someone else. Luckily, he was on board with where we were going. The server, the setup that we run in New Zealand is we've got Synergy sitting in Wellington, and through the Synergy server in Wellington, all the other offices connect through to that. We've got a 50 meg connection to all the other offices, and they're having no troubles at all with download speed and integration into Synergy. The administrator. Not too sure too much has been mentioned on on this component of synergy. Obviously, once you set synergy up, you have to go through and set up a number of items, and this is really the component where you do that. Email templates, issuing files, defaults, system naming rules, some searching defaults, and obviously setting up all your users and job structure. So this is where we sit as of last week. 500 jobs, 102 users, 32 gigabyte of file changes, and that's basically where we're at in terms of jobs from the start of this year. So I spoke about confirming a bit of a directory structure to ensure that everything's standardised. Everyone will again have similar requirements to this. In terms of integrating it with our Cardno business, there was a directory structure that was set up and in place in a couple of states in Australia. We took that as a sort of guide and moulded that to suit synergy. So we'll hopefully be on a common path going forward when synergy is considered on the bigger picture. So just about a directory structure, we break our structure into our job phases into a couple of components. Obviously a single phase project. You have your task lists, your teams, your forums, your issued files, and your common folders are the ones there in yellow. Your admin, correspondence, inputs and outputs. That's the first level. You've got your discipline, I guess I call them the thinking pots, under the design analysis. So that's broken down further into all your disciplines like survey, engineering, ecology. And then you've got your drawings and report folders. And then down the bottom you've got the optional folder for site works and contract management. Not all jobs we do have a physical works component, so that only comes on board if required. Directory structure for multi-phase projects. Spoke about the common folders. They're obviously common to excuse me, all the projects, and then the working folders under the specific phase or task. Rubbish in, rubbish out. Without the attributes, you're still going to struggle to find information that's useful to you. So a lot of thought needs to be given on the attributes that you develop and how they're rolled out into synergy. You've obviously got project attributes, folder attributes, and file attributes. So we've made good use of all those, and currently we've got 120 in use. And as it's a learning process, there's more and more that you think about that you can roll out. One of the early things we were doing with beta testing with synergy was the ability to roll that out onto your existing project. So you can actually, if you do have additional refinements on your folder structure, you can actually push that out to existing projects so you can make use of all that information. Our project templates. So I spoke previously a couple of slides ago about the single phase and the multiple phase projects. When you create a project, you can simply seek between those two options, and depending on what one you select, defines the structure of that job that gets constructed inside Synergy. So now we had all the nuts and bolts ironed out, it was time to do some testing. Being a project manager, I was heavily involved in some of this work. It was only done on selected projects, and there was an element of duplication, because it's not until you actually use it and you get into it you can see how to refine it and make it better. We had our quality management representative closely involved as well, because again one of our key drivers was the QMS and to get processes sorted so we could make that workflow integrated into Synergy. So the Cardno 12D loop. A lot of work was done early on with the beta testing and the bug fixes. It was a back and forth process, but 12D really gave us the support that we required to ensure that we could still keep operational on those testing projects and still running it in parallel. It didn't matter if there was a couple of days downtime here or there, but going forward, it's good to know that they turn things around really quickly, and not only bugs but enhancements as well. Just a bit about our email templates. We spent a bit of time setting up our templates for notifications to our users. This one here is a task overdue template that's constructed inside the administrator. There's a few if, else, then statements just to ensure that they get the appropriate information to them. So just a few examples. And earlier on when we were rolling that out, we had a bit of support text at the bottom of those emails so they could contact the applicable person and get the education that they needed. So just a few examples of how we're using the Synergy email templates. This is an issue receipt email that's come to me saying I've issued some information. In this instance, it was manually issued. So we get an email saying that it's manually issued. You've actually got to go and do it, pick it off the printer, deliver it via hand or whatever your delivery method will be. This one's a task created template. So this is an example of once a task is created, not necessarily by myself, but whoever creates the task. In this case, it was created by a lady called Katrina. Unfortunately, got assigned to me, so I had something to do. And it gives you examples of what your task is, when it's required to be done or started, and it provides a hyperlink down there to the task and any information associated with that task. These are similar ones for a task update. We felt it quite important to distinguish the difference between what the tasks emails are, because if you start getting a few emails, you could discount the importance of them. So by customising the headers and putting a bit of colour in there, it gives a bit of a difference to each type of email. And that's another one, task starting. So, emails. The emails that we upload into Synergy, we make it a mandatory requirement for the user to fill a description out. When we say that, we don't want them writing a novel. We just want a few keywords that are there for searching. So again, when you set your structure up, the keywords can be defined, and it's something that we're working on. Email attachments. This is when you're uploading attachments into Synergy from the email. These are the items that we request be populated. Obviously a description of what the attachment's for, revision, who it's from, date received, and obviously any of their file references, so we can search on that information as well. The revision one's an interesting one because not everyone's on Synergy, so the information we still receive has the date, has R1, has no, this is the right one. So we've got to filter that through and save that through. When we get revision updates of files through Synergy, we can actually rename them and overwrite the file that's already within Synergy. So the versioning of that file increases, so we only ended up with one master plan from the architect, for example. This is just an example of our email folder. Can't really see the description column there, but it's just examples of some keywords. A bit on searching. This is where the power of Synergy really comes into its own. We've defined in the administrator some standard pop-ups for what people typically may want to search. There's some file attributes there. In this case, this is a general search in this one particular job for the word design. So on that project, that was everything that came up with the word design. Now you could obviously filter further on that in terms of just emails or PDFs or files from John or to Paul. Specific searches, drilling down further. In this instance here, we're looking for a description with the word transpower. So again, that would have been a keyword someone would have put in an email, for example. And there you go, you filter down pretty quickly in terms of the emails that have come through to you. So the project team, obviously to define tasks, we needed to sort out our project team to ensure that should someone leave, that task gets continued, and we don't have to go through and reassign tasks to individuals. So just an example of one of our projects. This is all the people on a typical urban land development job. Same person can obviously do a number of tasks and be in a number of roles. So integrating our quality management system, having everything inside Synergy has helped us in terms of reporting. We can report on tasks that haven't been completed, mandatory tasks that are required to be completed, and standardising where everything sits, and obviously the inputs and outputs through Synergy gives that a quite good control. Health and safety is a big one, so we've also incorporated our tasks for health and safety into Synergy as part of the job setup, so there's mandatory requirements to undertake there. So I'll just talk a bit about into those tasks and defining those and putting those into our workspace. So once you've got the task defined, you can obviously associate other key documents and files into the tasks for easy reference. The goal is to ensure that the project, if that project manager or that engineer, if they fell over or were away on extended leave, that someone can actually come along, pick up that job, understand it pretty quickly where they're at, and know what the next thing to do is. This is an example of our mandatory tasks that are required to be completed on project startup. It's in alignment with our quality management system. So we've got processes 1, 2 and 3. Process 1's around authorisation, setting up a bit of housekeeping really, assigning some roles to the project. Process 2, all to do with money, terms of engagement, what we're engaged to do, and obviously a capability check on some of that brief. And process 3, health and safety requirements to be actioned. So just opening up one of those tasks. This is a task for authorisation from the manager. It links through to the applicable form on our intranet. So that's opened up and that's saved, and that goes files straight back into Synergy. This is an example for a task setup that's been defined for coordination of utility design. It's a bit of a process, and utility companies are a bit slow to come back to you. So, you know, under the old system, we'd send an email off, and then 6 weeks would go past, and you'd say, "Oh, where was that at?" And you'd have to go back and dig out the email and forward it on and say you sent the email to them 6 weeks ago, where you're at with your design. So this setup here that can come in via a template, sets up the tasks, associates them with the previous task, and once a task is completed, it initiates the second task to be undertaken. And you can associate obviously your emails in there, any design requirements, so that they're all easy to track. So again, someone else picking up this project is going to find it pretty simple to figure out where exactly you're at with regards to those items. In the definition of those tasks, it's actually got all the contact details of who you need to call, who you need to contact, who you need to send plans to, what they require. So again, just making it pretty bulletproof. We've got a lot of local authority requirements in terms of subdivisions in New Zealand. We could see the power of associating specific consent requirements to a task so that we can track the compliance of those consent requirements, not only through a local authority requirement, but also from a regional council point of view with regards to construction management, and obviously your workflow through your engineering approvals, your earthwork certifications, as-built. And obviously when we go for the apply for the 224C, which is like a code of compliance for the subdivision, that's done at sometimes 2 or 3 years down the track, depending on how much it rains. And to have those tasks linked with the documents and those approvals, it's quite easy to extract that information and append it to your application. This is an example of some consent conditions identified as tasks for both a land use consent and a subdivision consent. So as those items get ticked off and monitored, we can go through and make comments next to those and associate our documents. Some of those tasks are obviously reoccurring and ongoing, so it's just they'll be under action. Issued sets. It's all good to have all the information inside Synergy, but if you can't issue it and track it, then you're losing your audit process on the information going out of the office. So it was quite important that the information was recorded and could be reported on, just for that tracking. Example here of a small project where we've gone through and issued some information. A lot of these issues are to do with sunlight access plane compliance for certification. In this instance, you can see who it's issued by, who's created the issue set, why it's gone out, who approved it. And then obviously in the Files tab of that component, you can see what files were associated with that issue set and when they went out. Because Synergy has a dynamic link, if you like, back to one or more files, you shouldn't need to copy that file into another folder to bundle everything up. What we do is we can drag and drop different files into different folders, but you can actually just drag and drop the shortcut if you like. So it's always referencing back to the one source. And it's just an example there showing that file, although it's sitting in a different directory, it's linked back to the original location. We've done a bit of work on trying to streamline the process of getting our CAD guys uploading their outputs into Synergy. Initially, it was an additional step. You can't have quality management without actually putting some input, so we wanted to make that as minimal as possible. So we developed some tools inside AutoCAD to export our information up to 12D, up to Synergy. Being the company that we are, a lot of our exports, if you like, are from another package, so we want to ensure that there's a consistent way for every user to get that information into Synergy. So this is an example here of inside AutoCAD, we've got a plan that we've prepared. When we went back and hit the connect button, what happens is it runs a wee command, pops up via a panel with all the required attributes that are required to be populated. They're all filled out, and then that PDF gets uploaded directly into the right folder inside Synergy. When you go to do the second revision, this is populated again with the old information, so you can then change the revision of that plan before it goes out. This is the same plan inside Synergy. You can see there's two versions, and the audit trail behind that in terms of what was done and when and by who. So, New Zealand rollout. In January 14 this year, we switched everyone in Wellington over to Synergy for all new projects. A couple of months later, the other offices followed. Again, we weren't integrating 12D or any of our applications into Synergy. We still had them sitting on our project drive. It was more the inputs and outputs. The rollout was accompanied by a lot of user training that was done pre-rollout and internal webinars for education. It was quite helpful to have the guys from 12D sit in on some of those sessions so they could see where we were going and how we were using the product. And obviously they took that back and have used that information as well. And a lot of short technical notes and recording some how-to videos so people can get their answer pretty quickly. Every office needs a champion, so we went through and established people in each office that are the first go-to point. And should they not be available, we had obviously some support forums set up inside Synergy. So this here is an example of our forums inside Synergy. We had a couple of streams, we had bugs and enhancements, so people could internally communicate, if you like, on and record what they wanted, why they wanted it, and the same for bugs. So then in terms of our testing with 12D, myself and another colleague could consolidate all that information and send it back into 12D. Our resource drive. Every company's got a resource drive with a pot of standards and specifications and templates. It may or may not be in order. So we've started the task of bringing our resource drive over into Synergy, controlling who can do what and when, associating attributes with that information as well. And it's, again, another pot for all the correspondence. It's not necessarily project correspondence, but it is applicable to the business. And it's a bit of a screenshot of how our resource drive set up, again, broken into disciplines. So into the future. Obviously, we'll be integrating version 11 Synergy and version 11 12D into Synergy, looking at future enhancements to be developed and rolled out. Some of the ones we've identified is obviously a stronger context company database, so you actually all your client information sitting inside there. At the moment, we've got users and we've got external users, and you've got some attributes associated with them, but we want to get that associated with really your profile of your clients and when you last spoke to them and what their interests are in terms of strengths and projects. Obviously some project creation, issue sets, and controlling the 12D and AutoCAD outputs, if you like, in terms of the attributes, and version 11 with 12D is going that way with that spreadsheet. So again, that spreadsheet can control all your plotting, and it looks like that will be the way to control all your title blocks inside AutoCAD as well, and customization of the transmittal and file register. So in conclusion, Synergy is a bit of a change thinking for all. We're still finding people putting dates on files. In some cases, because when we moved to Synergy, we didn't lock down the naming convention straight away. We still gave them the opportunity to construct their document as they would, but we're moving that way now. But yeah, all generations have adapted and gone with Synergy and are now seeing the benefits. So all our 2014 projects are fully electronic. Future enhancements will only make us more efficient, and we're all continually learning. So thank you.